Well, you're not going to believe this, folks. I talk about weather a lot, but tomorrow we've got 2 to 4 inches of snow coming tomorrow, and I live in Indiana, and this is Indiana weather. So, and what is it, April 19th, something like that, and so we have the blessing to experience snow, but that's okay. So, for all my listeners and watchers on YouTube. I thank you so much for coming on my show. My name is Tom Russell. I'm your host for Life Without Limits. And if it seems like I look a little peaked, if you're looking at me on the screen, I have a 101 temperature, but doggone it, I am carrying on because this is who I am. Because come hell or high water, this is a show that's important for everyone to listen to. And speaking of the show, I want to just reiterate every week that the show uh, it's almost 2 years. This has been going on for almost 2 years now. Next week it'll be 2 years. And I have experienced so many blessings from the guests that I've had on my show. And I can't believe I am able to do this every week and I connect with people. And my guest tonight, JJ Antinone, is just as impressive. And she's got a story to tell that I think a lot of people need to hear. But the show is important not just for me, but it's also important for all of you listeners. And it requires a little time and effort and income to get the show going. So I'm just asking, if possible, that if you go to my website, lifewithoutlimitsshow.com, that's lifewithoutlimitsshow.com, you can go under fan support. There's 3 different tiers of fan support. To just, it could be $1 or $2. It doesn't really matter. Anything you feel comfortable doing that's fine. But take a look at that website, lifewithoutlimitsshow.com, and it helps a lot. And I want to keep this show going because I've got 2 months worth of guests backed up right now, and it's incredible opportunity, and they keep coming out of the woodwork, and I am not complaining one bit. And also, if you want to catch me on YouTube, you can go to Life Without Limits Thomas Russell, and you can see a bunch of my videos. So you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. So enough about me because this show isn't about me. It's about my guest. And tonight's guest, she's from Texas, and her name is JJ Antinone. JJ, thanks you so much. I appreciate you coming on my show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, we've had a number of conversations, and we had some issues with Skype when we first started doing it. But the reason why I do this pre-interview stuff and all of this pre-stuff, we don't come across these issues. So when the show comes on, boom, we are right in there. So before we get into JJ's story, Jacqueline, I want to tell my listeners who JJ is. She just turned 50 last month. Welcome to my world. You're in my decade now.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, she's a mom and a grandma, and she comes from a rooted New York Catholic Italian family, youngest of three, and her parents and siblings are still living. So that's a blessing. Never take that for granted, JJ.
Definitely.
And this is what's really impressive about JJ. She's after 6 attempts to pass the math portion. She will be receiving her Bachelor of Psychology from
Tarleton?
Tarleton State University, and affiliate to Texas A&M, out of Stephenville, Texas, in about 4.5 months. And in May, she will be a certified addiction recovery coach, where she plans to become an online program instructor of the course once certified. And if that isn't enough, in 2017, she released her poetry book through Lulu Publications titled Smiling All the Time, and Everyone Needs a Smile. She's been a mentor, public speaker for women advocate groups and local freshman college classes in various subject material, and she started her own business website named smilingforlife.com. And you really need to take a look at that. It's really important. There's a lot more stuff we're not going to be able to get into. If we start talking about everything, we're not going to be able to get into the show, right?
That's okay.
So we want to talk about the show is going to be about anxiety, and it's important that we kind of frame these questions toward that, but it has to start from somewhere. So JJ, we're talking about We're going way back. I normally don't do this. When you're 3 years old, what happened when you were 3 years old?
So basically, in a nutshell, our house was being built. We stayed at my grandparents' home. Mom and dad worked, and I was being cared for under my grandparents. They had a big fight. Grandpa was kicked out. I then tried to run away that night, and the repercussions of that for me, of everything I built up to my age 50, for me, dealt with what was considered abandonment. So that's what happened at age 3.
But then when you reached age 9, then that's where the wheels started going off the train, right?
Unfortunately, yes. And so I had a situation where, on 3 different occasions between the ages of 9 and 16, I was approached by different individuals and I was sexually abused on 3 different occasions.
Now, did anybody, did you go to anybody to find out if you get some help from anybody?
Not necessarily. It was one of those things where the pattern for me was that we're just not going to talk about this. We're not going to deal with it. So for the situation when I was age 9, I think I was in my 20s and I didn't realize things had occurred, and I kind of had like a nightmare kind of thing. I went, whoa, this is more of a reality. So I felt like I was about to have an absolute nervous breakdown. And in the area that I lived at, they had a crisis mental health MHMR facility. And so I was able to call and I was able to pack a bag and go. And that's started the development in the time frame for me of then, I guess you could say, opening wounds and or acknowledging myself of things that I didn't even know existed in my world. At that point, I was diagnosed bipolar, and on many occasions from age 23 till about 5 years ago, I was in and out of the mental facility of the hospital. I just always kind of knew that the cocktail wasn't quite right. And the side effects of feeling suicidal ideation, homicidal ideation, or severe depression, hypermania, grandiose thoughts, my norm of my gut instinct just kept saying this is not right. So I kind of say I kept going to get a change in the cocktail.
Well, we'll get back to that, but let's talk about as a young person, young or youth, um, what was the anxiety like for you then?
So at, I was your typical normal teenager. Did my development at age 12. I was happy go lucky. I what I was trying to figure out my anxiety of when it kind of hit is I started with my pregnancy with my son, who was
Hmm.
my first child. And I started having attack after attack as far as panic attacks, and I wasn't aware of it. Of that's what it was. And they ended up putting me on bed rest because I was having seizure like activity.
Hmm.
And so medically, in the late 80s, early 90s, you medically could not give a medication of any kind to treat any kind of symptoms when you were carrying a child. And so I'd had an episode, is what we call it, like a seizure activity. They called it a post orgasmic colon spasm, and then I would like kind of black out.
Wow.
And so it was April 1st. I went to the emergency room, and the doctor said, the baby's not under too much stress, but your blood pressure's up. So we're going to schedule a C section for April 3rd. And so at that point, I delivered my son C section. And then from there, about 3 weeks into having my child, I had severe postpartum depression. And that was my first of going into a mental hospital. And the way it was presented to me is let's get some testing done. Let's see what's going on. Let's get to the bottom of this. And not knowing I was in psychiatric ward and left a newborn. And so it kind of, from then on, it was never a really good foundation for me because I was hormonally and a new mother all over the place.
How did you not know you were on the psych ward?
Well, when you sign the form, once you go behind the doors that lock, you're there.
Hmm.
And so, and for 72 hours medically, they can go to a hearing or a court and say, no, we have the rights over you of your mental state.
Hmm.
And so by me signing, thinking of what was told to me of, oh, well, you're going to get some testing done and we're going to get to, I'm thinking I'm going to a bed, in the hospital room. I get visitors, and I was not aware at all.
So talk me through this if you can, because I always, I shouldn't say interested because I don't wish this on anybody else, is when you go through a panic attack, regardless of what was going through in your life, what was your mindset that you were thinking? Did you feel like the world was falling apart around you?
So for my personal experience, it's almost like a hot flash or a flushing comes over you, and it's like you can literally feel it trickle down from the top of your crown of your head all the way down your neck. Your hairs are sticking up, and it's just this. It's like a racetrack of just a heat wave of a rush, and it's almost like an out of body experience to where you feel like you're gasping for air and you can't breathe. Of course, clearly I was talking, oh my gosh, what's going on? And so then that heightened, not realizing my blood pressure was going up. My pulse was like probably over 120. Um, then you start having the sweating, the palpitations, and you literally feel like you're about to die. And so then that on top of then the stacking of all those physical symptoms, you completely lose it and you freak out and you get into an extremely mental state that's such a crisis state. So for me, I used to then hum songs in my head. I would get in the bathtub and I'd put a cold rag on. I was trying to do it's almost like I was trying to cool myself down like an alcohol bath or an ice bath because I physically, it was such an extreme hotness and out of body experience. I did everything I could to physically cool myself down. And I was just having rapid thought after rapid thought. And I was trying to, in my mind, sing a song or just calmly say, okay, you can get through this. You can do this. I would try and say, Satan, get out of me. I would try and say, be gone. I was doing everything. I couldn't get rid of him. Couldn't get rid of him.
So with you going through all this, if there's more than one time, and you said that you went through some therapy a little bit, but I guess if people looking around you, did they think that you were really going crazy?
It was such a shocker that you're almost dumbfounded and you don't even know. I mean, you don't even know how to respond because I didn't even know what to do. And
Mm.
so at the time I was married, my children were very young, so it wasn't anything I involved, or tried to expose to them. I then became, because of that, you isolate yourself or you become where you don't want to be out in public. It had gotten to the point where I could go from the living room into the kitchen and my mind would be like, do I, do I want a Dr. Pepper or do I want a sweet tea? And because of whatever, it's like I went through that doorway and then bam, it would hit me. And I'd be like, are you kidding me? Where is this coming from? I'm not stressing. I'm thinking about what I want to drink. So I obsessively got to where they were coming on subconsciously of me not knowing it, that I think I fixated so much on it that I ended up bringing the panic attacks on, is what I was telling myself, because I was so afraid to do anything. I didn't want to go in the other room. I didn't want to speak. I didn't want to feel an emotion. And I literally felt like I was suffocating all the time. It completely controlled and consumed me. I was not functional at all.
Well, you kind of feel like, I don't know, not with me not going through the panic attack. Did you kind of feel like, well, this doesn't make sense. This is not normal behavior. I mean, how did you talk yourself through that?
So I got to the point where I tried to make sure my whole entire day and schedule was consistent. And so my consistency was, maybe what time I got up in my routine, whether how many times I went to the bathroom in the morning, when I drank my coffee, brushed my teeth, ate my breakfast. The layers or not lack of layers of clothing, it literally became a consumption. And so to speed up to recent times, for whatever reason, I was able to, I guess, calmly, I don't know if it was because I was on medication, I wasn't having them as much. And then some time went by of some years. So we're talking from, say, 24 to say 26, I was having them all the time. And then from like 30 to 33, I was having them all the time. And they would just come in spurts and then they'd go away for years. So the recent of when they happened is I was seeing a private counselor. I had chosen to work on very specific things of what I wanted to, was unaware of how to deal with, of skill and life coping skills. And I'm sitting there, I'm just going 90 miles a minute. I'm all over the place. My legs are going like this, and I'm, freaking out. And all of a sudden, I calmly put my hands in my lap, crossed my leg, my voice calmed down, and I was with this tone. And the counselor was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, stop, JJ." He goes, "What did you just do?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "What did you just do?" I said, nothing. He goes, "Well, what were you thinking of, or what were you doing?" And I said, "Well, behind you, you had like a frosted light, you had like a green wall, and I guess I kind of focused above your head." And he was like, "You're calm. What did you do?" And at that point, I was able to realize how hypersensitive I was, which then gave me the knowledge to know that whether it was sound, taste, smell, touch, if I triggered any of that, whatever was then elating and causing these panic attacks. So I go home, and again, I'm not sleeping well. I decide to get up. I'm a cigarette smoker, and I'm having this panic attack. And I buy what's on sale. I had a pack of Cool Filter Kings. I'm having this panic attack. I'm all over the place. I'm trying to frantically on my phone. Who can I call at 3 o'clock in the morning to help me calm down? I gotta calm this down. I look down at the Cool Filter packet that's green, and bam! Within seconds, it was just gone, completely eliminated. So I'm like, okay, this is the second time now where visually a color of specific that was like a mint green slash, Easter pastel color is calming me. So on my own, I decided, you know what? I'm going to go get some sunglasses. And I know they have those mirrored Top Gun looking ones. And I said, I'm going to do what I can to find not spending hundreds of dollars. And I found at Walmart a $5 pair of glasses that were green tinted, even though they were mirrored. So I went around to family and I said, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. Because I was panic attack after panic attack. I'd, like my glasses, I'd be all over the place. I'd put those on and I literally could feel my whole face and everything, just my shoulders, stress. I mean, just the whole thing. It would calm as can be. And I did it for maybe 2 days, 3 days tops. And it's from that day forward, I've absolutely never had one more panic attack.
How long ago was this?
Let's see, 2017, 2016.
Okay, so it's relatively new. I mean, recent.
Right.
So you've gone through years and years of this, and then you have this. Now, for me, since it was such a short time ago, I would get on my laptop or I get on my phone and Google it. Did you try to find out if that's normal behavior, color?
I never looked into sensitivity on that. Now through meditation or say through calming, I know being a fire sign Aries that blue aquamarine is a calming water. I need to be around water. So for me, I just kind of said, well, it's kind of in the same family and category for me of these soft colors. I'm a very you know, type A personality anyways. And so for me, everything at that point became an adventure for me to where, you look up things and you do this and that. And I've always been the type of person that I don't feel comfortable telling you how to do anything, let alone make a suggestion unless I've actually experienced it. So to answer that, I purposely didn't go and look and research because I wasn't going to be one of those that said, well, in this article from APA or from, Time Magazine or from this and that, I wanted it's got to come from the heart, and it had to be heartfelt, and it had to be genuine. And for me, with like my movement, like you or whatever, of trying to reach people to let them know whether they've gone through this or not. I never felt like I needed a book or a manual. I needed to be from just my gut and what I experienced. And I don't ever try and put on someone, you got to do this, but my experience is all I can tell.
Do you ever figure out where the anxiety came from? I mean, because you said you were bipolar, but I mean, was that part of it?
I can't recollect medically or professionally or even if I've ever found it. I just know at that point, about the same time, I was seeing a private counselor. Besides then, I could tell my body had gotten really toxic. It had been on so many medications. I had a lot of psych pills in me and a lot of medical problems. And I could tell that I was no longer having secondary side effects to um, say the illness of, so to speak, but more of the medications. And
Mm-hmm.
so, with the help of the care of all the doctors I was seeing, we were able to take me off all medications. And I haven't been on medicine for over 5, 6 years.
FI6. But when we talked when we first connected, you were saying that the medication that was supposed to reduce the anxiety actually created more anxiety. Is that about right?
Right. So, being a hypersensitive system, I'm kind of like my grandmother, my mother. If you were to have to get a start of a medication that's 50 milligrams, we have to take like 10 to maybe 20 milligrams. So we have such a hypersensitive system, if to where any kind of rarity or side effect you're going to get, we're going to get it. And so I actually, when I was seeing the psychiatrist or psychologist and they were doing medications, they actually had to go and leave me and go find their medical books to find out what was so common or not common. I had the rarest of side effects from day one that you could possibly get with every medication and cocktail I got.
Mm.
So for me, I was just like, I'm not doing this no more. There's got to be other ways to handle my daily function. Because again, not only were the panic attacks, but the mindset of, oh, you're bipolar, oh, well, you're disabled, oh, you're this. And I didn't want any of these labels anymore. I wanted to just be a functional mom, wife, woman, and all these mental and or anxiety states were completely consuming me. And I kind of just had to put a halt and say, no more. Let's just take one thing at a time and back up. And that's what I kind of did. And the kicker was the panic attacks when I quit having them by trial and error of doing just that green color in 3 different situations. And I said, oh, okay, this is pretty simple. It's not this big dramatic thousands of dollars medical. Let's try something simple to then deal with the next phase.
So in your case, it was more color, the color green. I mean, if someone's listened to the show and they kind of feel like they're going through their own trauma of their panic attacks, what do you suggest someone do in that same kind of vein, whether it's color or doing something different?
So I drive Uber, and I've mentored some people, and they'll actually have panic attacks, and people from everywhere will be calling me and going, "I'm having one," and then and so what I usually try and do is say, take a deep breath. Let's count to 10. I'm here with you, and then I'll ask them open-ended questions like, what kind of vacation do they want to take? Do they want to go hiking and be in the forest, or do they want to be near the ocean? And so if they say they want to go to the ocean, I actually will stay on the phone with them and walk them through of putting their feet in the sand, and then each digit of their toe feeling that sand in between. And is it wet? Is it cold? Do you hear the seagulls in the background? Do you hear the waves as they're going in and out? Someone may say they want to be on, and I may do a scene of a hammock, and then just feeling the wind. And so I'm physically on the phone diverting their mindset of that engagement of the physicalness of the panic attack. And so then I'll say, okay, now let's do this a couple, call me anytime. And within 3 times of people of the same person, they don't call me anymore. And then I'm not hearing them having a panic attacks. You sing a song in your head, or you physically need to take your mind on a vacation. And
Mm-hmm.
you've got to be engaged as if you're really at that vacation, whether it's in the hammock, like I said. So those would be my suggestions, or some of them.
Yeah, I'm certain that in your earlier years that for you to even engage in a conversation with somebody about how to reduce their anxiety, that never entered your mind because you were in your own personal hell, right?
Right. And I was just trying to remember my name most days, and or even get up to, be, like I said, a mom or a wife. For me to be functional, and between whatever symptoms I had from the medicines, besides in the panic attacks, like I said, it completely consumed me. I think I had a network of family that I think I blew up their phone 3 to 5 times a day. Each party, I was so I was so engaged in being out of control, and I just was screaming for help, and I didn't know what to do. So at that time, it was like, well, go to the hospital, call your doctor, check into the institution. Well, I was running numbers around the institution at that point because I had already done my homework, did what I was supposed to do, and it's crisis only. Well, I wasn't crisis. It was me every day. I'm like, this isn't going to work anymore. We got to try an alternative. So
Did you normally don't like to bring this up, but I mean, did you get a point in your life where you just couldn't take it anymore?
I did. Not that we like to jump back, but when I was a teenager, I tried to attempt to take my life, and I
Mm-hmm.
took 100 pills. Um,
100.
I had, well, it was the naproxen or the Nuprin, whatever it was. It was like a um, aspirin type
Yeah,
Tylenol.
yeah.
I was not at that point diagnosed or realizing that I was probably at that point at 16 already having panic attacks.
Mm.
I wasn't even aware. I was just your typical mama drama, woe is me, teenager, and so it was not even considered by me or anybody. Um, and then there was one other time in my 20s, I did try to attempt to take my life, and it was a situation where I'd found out some events of situations that had taken place, and then I was like, I'm such a burden that I felt like it was my fault, and it had nothing to do with me. I had spiraled so bad in my 20s that I felt like a failure, and I was shaming and blaming and guilt, and I felt I would have been better off for everyone else to not be around.
Yeah. And did anybody try to help you through this, or you just it was your own personal battle?
It was, well, I was engaged for so many years with the MHMR that was what everyone said, call your doctor, call your doctor. And so my back was up against the wall because I wanted to address whether it was relationship problems or how I communicated or coping mechanisms or the panic attacks daily or often. And that's not what for me personally, that's not what was ever discussed.
Yeah,
I went for changing and coping and how to have how to be able to convey and communicate, and I was getting nowhere. I was actually going backwards and spiraling.
hmm. Now, I had a friend of mine, actually, a former guest of mine. He was on Bruce Brumman. He talked about something that just it bothers him. I guess at some point, when people bring up, they talk about mental health and what it affects people. That they think that if I'm trying to, I don't want to, say things that are untoward for anybody, but it's like once you start talking about you need to look into your mental health, then you kind of feel like you're damaged, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Well, and being about to get my bachelor's psychology degree and this and that, the proper wording is a person with bipolar or you can't say, they're retarded. You can't say, you got to use specific lingo. And so again, special needs and or any of that, whether it's the mental or psychiatric or whatever, you're all then categorized where the society, it's not a big spoken thing of mental health awareness, suicide awareness, anxiety, emotional disorder, ADHD. It's, you slap it on the wrist, you put a pill in them, and then you be gone. You don't even discuss it among family. It's the no of rule of anything mental awareness that's discussed. And so for me, I'll be the first to say, yeah, I'm a little off my rocker, and I'm so proud of it. And I act as goofy and crazy, and I'm so comfortable in my skin. So I I'm trying to make awareness that nobody has to have a label on anything. Whether they're, we it just doesn't matter. I mean, my awareness is to make you feel comfortable in your skin when a person feels in their own desire that there is an issue of concern that they're not comfortable with, then at that point, if it's addressed to me and or the topics brought up, then that's when it's discussed. And of course, what may work for one may not work for another. And it all boils down to, for me, like I was saying, stemming from the abandonment issues, self-esteem issues. And so, not realizing it, my mind, I wasn't having racing thoughts or a voice in my head. But when you're a stay home mom and you work graveyard shift only weekends, you got a lot of time on your hands. So I fixated on all these mental lies of assumptions of drawing conclusions that weren't there. So I was feeding myself the guilt, the shame, the blame, and I was preparing my day of already in the morning to then have those panic attacks, not even aware that I was my own self enemy of what I was telling myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I then learned I'm going to rewire this. And so I did a Maston Kip Claim Your Power in 2016. And it's a 30-day, man, it was raw and uncut. And we're talking, it exposed stuff on yourself that you're like, I just do not like what I'm seeing. And you don't want to see this about yourself. So I went through severe pain and suffering to get on the other side because I was so fearful of the unknown. Well, the unknown is not unknown. It's always here. We've just stuffed it and shoved it. And so I don't care that I'm 50 and just now getting a degree. I don't care that I'm 50 and I just had the aha light go off. For me, I'm okay with that because now I know I'm comfortable. And so I didn't realize that all that time that I was, pushing it back because I was going to be an embarrassment to my family, or, meaning my husband and my children, or the cat may get out of the bag. I was so fearful of what wasn't being known that I even kept it from myself. So instead of addressing all these issues that were not issues really in the first place, it was just life. It was just, I mean, we probably say it all the time. Everybody's got dysfunction. Everybody's got their issues. Everybody's got their black cat in their family. Again, to me, those are all labels. Well, why can't it just be that I'm a proud Italian that happens to be a female and my name is JJ? And so it's okay that, you've got your things, I've got my things. We've got grandkids, and I'm trying to evolve and make people aware that you're not as fearful of what you think is unknown. You know of these things. You just need to face them now.
I'm fascinated. A lot of people know my story about me writing my first book at 52. And from there, everything just changed in my life is because I made that decision not to run away from my dreams, the things I want to do. And here you are getting your degree at 50. What was your motivation for that?
It I was labeled that, oh, you never finished anything, you're never going to amount to anything, oh, you're just going to quit, right? You're just going to quit. Why are you wasting the educators? And something clicked in my 40s, and I said, oh no, we're not going to do this. I'm going to prove you wrong. So I said, it's okay that I'm using this fuel of proving all those naysayers wrong. And I kind of evolved or changing. And so I made a patent to deal with myself is that every year for about 4 years now, I have a New Year's resolution that kind of comes to me in meditation, maybe November. And that's where I came up with the email of the simple minded, just to be simple minded. 1 year, it was all about timing. So everything that entire year was about timing. So for me, that first one was about being consistent and follow through. That's everything that came my way, whether it was
Exactly.
losing weight. I was pre-diabetic, had high cholesterol, high blood pressure. I was morbid obese. I was on 20 something pills. And so when I removed things and did whatever of the medications, I was able to then physically work on one step and one phase at a time. So for me, I'm like, well, what's going to be a code word for me? Because my code word for the panic attacks was the green. So for me, is no longer did I have the glasses, I lost them or broke them. I just knew to, in my mindset, you play like in the car with the kids to pass time. Where's whatever, and so I spy something. So I played. Everything was an adventure and game. So I had to spy. In my mind, I trained it to subconsciously. If I even had an inkling of feeling something coming on, I had to spy for that green
Mm-hmm.
because that's what worked for me. I toned out the songs that were going on, whether it was Christmas at the Walmart or say it was loud crowds. And so I did that. Well, when I did the consistency and following through with the school, it was the same thing. As soon as I felt like I was taking 5 to 6 classes every semester for the last 3 years. I've not missed spring, summer, or fall. So I kind of piled on my code words of timing, consistency, follow through, and there's no expiration date. There's no agenda. I'm just being present and being consistent, or I'm just being present, and in time it will reflect and reap what I've sowed. And so I was changing the way I mentally was speaking to myself, and I was no longer drifting in that assumptive, fearful, oh my goodness, am I going to have a panic attack in the next hour anymore?
Yeah.
So
Now that's interesting because I long ago gave up my dream to go to school to get a degree that I'm 59 now, so trying to get a job in any kind of endeavor that I want to choose, I mean, I'm behind the eight ball. So what are you going to do with your degree?
So I'm got all the academics done for to be a licensed chemical dependency counselor, and so I'm going to then see with my bachelor's degree or go back to the dean at the college I got that. I'll either do my internship, get an LCDC CARC, which is the certified addiction recovery coach, and then have the name of bachelor of psychology. I'll continue to write books. I'll continue to public speak. I'll continue to be an advocate and be awareness for addiction recovery and then mental health. And then with the certified addiction recovery, it's a 26-week program where you self-paced do it, but then you're like the instructor. And so for me, I started last May, and I will be finishing up in about 3 to 5 weeks. And my full time would be then to be that online, to be the instructor, help out other people. It's an online program. So I guess to be an instructor.
Oh,
And
that's
then,
cool. JJ, I'm so proud of you for doing this. There's so many people just give up on their dreams, and you really need to go for that. Now, you talked about you go to codependency meetings to find out about how to deal with issues. Why did you decide to do that?
so when I was bipolar, every anonymous besides alcohol and drug, I was anonymous. I was a candidate for every single one of them, whether it was eating disorder, codependency, mental health, this and that. And so for me, I was able to read the signs and symptoms of basically the self-talk of the way I sabotage myself all the time. So I've been a good 7 to 10 years going into the codependency meetings, evolving like I did about 5 to 6 years ago, seeing, hey, maybe you're not so much this candidate for the labels. Well, being involved now for so long, going to meetings, and then with COVID going online and stuff, I joined the CODA, which is the codependency site. They had reached out, and I was on the newsletters, and I wasn't, I was reading them, and the opportunity came up and I jumped on it. So at that point, I then became an inmate sponsor about 3 years ago. And right now I currently write to 3 inmates, both male and female, where about a year ago, I was only writing to females.
Mm. Now, you did talk, you've been talking about bipolar, about what you've gone through, but and you said you were in remission. I always thought that bipolar, you have bipolar for the rest of your life. How are you able to be in remission?
So I just don't speak of it, as far as it's, again, not a label of me. I mean, I can say I'm bipolar and I can say I'm not. To me, it's not defining my character. And so I know medically or mentally in the insurance realm, in the field of, that once you're diagnosed that, you're always that.
Yeah.
I just don't let it define me.
Right. You just don't label yourself with that.
Yeah.
I just lost the questions here. Okay. You most people know what the Serenity Prayer is, but you think that's the kind of thing that everyone needs to listen to. Why is that?
So if you're saying, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, you cannot change another person's view. or opinion. You cannot change anything but yourself and accept the
Mm-hmm.
things you can, which is so on that part, when I was very morbid obese, the mirror was probably, a little bit mid belly. I was in front of the mirror, just me, and all commando. And so I physically was saying to myself in the mirror, you're a size 6. Your waist is this size. You're healthy. You're breathing better. You're walking, 2 miles. I wasn't speaking it, but I literally had to look at myself in the mirror, and it was not fun, but I spoke into existence. And so how I was able to lose that weight was, it was in the middle of the serenity prayer. Except the things I can change is I said, well, I'm not going to say I'm on a diet, and I'm not going to put any kind of restrictions. So I started measuring myself. And so with the tape measure from your arms, all the way down, you've got all these measurements. I was losing 9 to 12 inches every 10 days, because
Wow.
you get a half inch here, you get 2 inches here. Well, I don't know what other kind of reward I could have rewarded myself, of then the encouragement to stay consistent. So that's
Mm-hmm.
how my weight was able to shed off, and this and that. And so God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, which is others, to accept the things I can change, which was everything within me, whether it was whatever I was consuming, whatever I was eating, drinking, whatever I was saying to myself, and the courage to know the difference. That one probably is the one that everyone falls short of, and it's a very legitimate, valued, excusable way. Well, because he, she, they, and they say we have one mouth and two ears for a reason, and
Right.
maybe one of these days my mouth will realize that there's teeth. I love to talk, as you see,
Yeah. Yeah.
but calming down and basically just making myself self-aware of exactly how I start my morning completely sets the stage for the entire day. In that is knowing the difference.
I
Not
think that's a hard thing to do because when you talk about your physical appearance, I always tell people that if you want to make some changes in your life and how you think about yourself, you have to change some things in your life and how you think about yourself. And it's a daily process of making that decision and owning up to your failings and anything that's bad about you that that it has to be fixed. It has to be fixed based on what you do, not what other people tell you to do.
right,
And I think that's important in life because it's we have our own issues. We don't need to have anybody else tell us what's wrong with us. We already know. But the key is we don't let that define our lives.
right.
I think that's what you've done over the course of your life.
Well, and you made a valid point, because you had said, we don't need others. And so I think that's where we fall short with ourselves, is that we're so busy beating ourselves up and feeling like such a failure, or feeling so negative or whatever, that we step foot out of our door, the wind blew wrong and someone popped off at us, and boy, we just annihilate them.
Yeah.
And so we're, instead of just taking that step back, and it's okay if you're running late, you're already running late, take a deep breath and just say, okay, the next phase, be present, and be in that moment, to where don't allow your day to kind of pile of files. And so we stay so much in the past. And so whatever's, I don't even know what's going on here at 7:30 this evening, because right now I'm present in the moment here.
Hmm.
And when you when you're not so hard on yourself, and you are able to physically, I
Yeah.
made a B on that test, and it's
Yeah.
okay to say that. We're so used to the way things are set up that people feed off of the drama or the negative. So that's why I'm like smiling all the time, and I'm over dramatic of just being a clown, because I'm just trying to leave that lasting. Maybe they just needed that hug or that smile.
Yeah. And that helps. That really helps. And I always tell people, I've been doing the show for a couple of years now. I'm always telling people, look, take your eyes off yourself and onto someone else because you don't know what someone else is going through. Uh, and uh, and they'll tell you. They will tell you, hey, this is what's going on in my life. No one really cares, but thank you for telling, talking to me because at least you care. And
Yes.
I think that's important. Now, when we only got a couple more minutes here, but
Okay.
I want to talk about your book.
Okay.
What's the deal with your book there?
So here's my book. It's Smiling All the Time. It's a poetry book, and I started it in 2017. And it was kind of, I just did a bucket list. I'd already started losing the weight, and this I wrote poetry when I was younger. The last poem, I think I wrote The Starry Night. I wrote when I was like 19, and it didn't have a title, and I ended up titling it. But most of the book is, I had gotten divorced, and I was married between my children's dad and my other one almost 30 years. So I was like, I'm going to put myself out there, socialize, do social networks. And I just started digging and asking people a lot of things. And so a lot of the poems are what they made me feel on, um, their perception of a story. Or The Bench is a poem about when I went to Discount Tire to get my tire done. And so there
Mm-hmm.
was a bench outside, and the sun was out and the bird went by. There's one about my daughter, one about my son, my cats. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just basically me kind of pouring in a poetic way, just life around me, and how I fluently, in grave detail of adjectives, I guess you could say, worded how life brought me to a new chapter. And so I did my bucket list.
So the name of the book is what again?
It's called Smiling All the Time, and it's not with a G on the end of smiling. It's just smiling all the time.
And where do you get it?
You can get it at Lulu. You can get it at Amazon. You can get it through any bookstore. You can do e-Kindle. You can go lulu.com. It's Smiling All the Time by Jacqueline Antinone. And so it's everywhere that you would put in the book. Uh, so
Well, I'm glad because I think it's important. People need this kind of enthusiasm for life, and JJ, your journey has not ended. It's just begun. There are so many things great things are gonna be happening in your life. I am so excited for you, and I am so grateful you were able to come on my show and put your soul out there because it's not easy, right? I mean, because when you start talking about your life to open up all the things that were going on in your life wrong, but we always seem to be able to turn this around because that's the whole idea about the show because it's all about solutions and not focusing on the problems.
right.
And I think that's so important. So how can people reach you, JJ?
So they can go to Smilin for Life, and it's SMILIN, the number four, LIFE.com. And I'm on Instagram, and it's outreach at smilinforlife.com. And so I'm Jacqueline Antonon on LinkedIn. And so I'm going to be putting myself out there and starting now that we've opened COVID to do more speaking engagements. And
Yeah.
I really appreciated this. I don't know if you were aware, but we all tell our stories, but this was my absolute. I've done a lot of speaking engagement, my very first debut of my own testimony of the whole thing. So thank you for allowing the stage and the comfort and the friendship we've built.
Yeah, it's important to me. I shouldn't say it's important to me. It's important for everyone who listens. That whatever you're going through, you can go fix yourself if you really choose to make that decision. And it could be traumatic, and you think that there's no end to it, but there is. You just have to find some kind of light. And then, JJ, it resonated with me when you started talking about thinking about being on the beach and being very descriptive and taking them away from their initial problem. And I think that's so important. So I'm going to remember that. I am going to remember that.
Thank
Especially when I
you.
when I go through. I don't go through anxiety very often because I'm always tired. So, but that's all right. So and this is a week before my anniversary. And again, if you would like to help support my show, you can go to lifewithoutlimitshow.com. That's lifewithoutlimitshow.com, and any amount would help. I'm uncomfortable having to talk about this, but I mean, this show is important. And again, it's not for me. It's for guests like JJ. I need to be able to present something for uh, everybody who is going through situations. So, and as I end all my shows, I want everyone to smile infectiously, laugh genuinely, love unconditionally, live courageously. I believe in all of you. I believe all of you are created to do something spectacular in your life, I and it's important that you think you can do things regardless what age you're in. I mean, JJ's 50, I'm 59, and our life is just starting. And if you start early, great. If you start late, even better because you're not giving up on your dreams. And that's important. So, everyone, have a great week and hope to see you again next week.